much the practices that Ezra and Nehemiah, like most of like Ezra started, actually a lot kind of stayed the common practice among the Jews. That's my phone. There's sardine one. It's a pixel size. Alright, so Bob Project. Mission for our project. Collections. Luke. And we just did the prodigal son. Now we're at the crucifixion. Let's Luke and Acts. 2 books. 2 big books.
So we're walking through the Gospel of Luke, and we've reached the end of Jesus' long road trip to Jerusalem. He's arrived.
So he rides a donkey down the Mount of Olives towards the city, and all these crowds are forming, and people are singing, "Praise the King who comes in the name of the Lord." They're laying down their cloaks in front of him.
And why all this royal treatment?
Okay, so Israel's ancient prophets promised that one day God himself would arrive and rescue his people and rule the world. Other times, the prophet spoke about a coming king who would ride into Jerusalem to bring justice and peace.
So Jesus is activating all these hopes that he's that king, and everyone's ecstatic.
Well, not everybody. The religious leaders, they think Jesus is a threat to their power, and so they're not happy. But even more striking, Jesus himself is distraught. He's actually weeping as he rides.
Yeah, why?
Well, Jesus can see what is coming. He knows that he won't be accepted as Israel's king, and he knows that Israel will keep going down a destructive path, neglecting the poor, stirring up rebellion against their Roman oppressors, and he knows that it will lead to death. It breaks his heart.
And it riles him up. The first thing he does in Jerusalem is march into the temple courts, and he drives out the money changers, disrupting the entire sacrificial system.
Yeah, he's staging a prophetic protest, and he stands in the center of the courtyard, shouting out words from Israel's ancient prophets. This is supposed to be a place of worship, but you've made it a den of rebels.
A den of rebels?
Yeah, he's quoting from the prophet Jeremiah, who stood in this same spot, the center of Israel's religious and political power. And he offered the same critique of Israel's leaders, that they're rebellious and corrupt.
And they get the message and start to plan to have him killed.
Which is no surprise to Jesus. In fact, he planned that all of this would happen during Passover.
This is the Holy Week when Jewish people celebrate their ancient story of how God liberated them from slavery and invited them into a covenant relationship.
And so Jesus uses the symbols of Passover to reveal the meaning of his coming death. The broken bread was his broken body, and the wine was his blood that would establish a new covenant relationship between God and Israel. Jesus was going to die for his people and open up a new way forward.
After the meal, Jesus takes his disciples to a garden to pray.
And he struggles with the very human desire to save his life instead of sacrificing it, but he overcomes this temptation.
And it's here where the religious leaders, with the temple guards, find him and arrest him.
Now, Jerusalem was being ruled by the Roman Empire, and so the temple leaders couldn't execute Jesus without permission from their Roman governor, a man named Pontius Pilate. And so they make up this charge that Jesus is a rebel king stirring up revolution against the Roman emperor.
Pilate asks Jesus, "Are you the king of the Jews?"
And Jesus answers, "You say so."
So Pilate can see that Jesus is an innocent man and he doesn't deserve death.
But the leaders keep insisting that he is dangerous, so they negotiate a compromise. Pilate will release an actual rebel against Rome, a man named Barabbas, instead of Jesus. And so the innocent is handed over in the place of the guilty.
Jesus is taken away with 2 other accused criminals and nailed to a Roman execution device. And people are mocking him. Hey, if you're the Messianic king, save yourself and us.
But Jesus loved his enemies to the very end, offering hope to one of the criminals dying beside him. And he even prayed for his executors. "Father, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing."
And then the sky darkened as an innocent man died the death of a rebel.
And then Jesus cried out with ancient words from Israel's Psalms, "Father, into your hands I commit my spirit." And then Jesus died, innocent and alone.
They really want to see the depravity, like the darkness that descended on his death. You know, there's actually, when I been part of they're called what's the Friday that's called? Good Friday? Yeah. That's what I thought was Good Friday. It's like on Good Friday, like that's I've been to part of services where they show Jesus' death and it just ends bleak. And then Sunday, what happened Sunday? He resurrected right, which is then shown. That's shown as a celebration.
That's why Easter.
That's when Christians like throw their mad parties. They throw their bread at the neighbor, at their face.
Hey, yo, you want some bread?
Jesus resurrected. Huh! They throw wine at their face. Jesus resurrected. Huh!
That would be such a funny prank.
Just like absolutely like make Easter like a crazy Christian rave. Like you hear, like you have like
beat music. You have
DJs.
Right at people.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be perfect.
Passover food fights. Ah! Resurrected Day food fights.
That I can't.
Since Jesus is like symbolized as a lamb, they're just pieces of like cooked lamb, grilled lamb being thrown everywhere.
I would love that. Food fight. On Easter.
All right, so takeaway, my friend. We should do that. Host a big food fight Easter party.
Okay, anyway.
Takeaway. Mm-hmm. That's the very end, but
Not what people expected. He fought people like, big nukes by his side.
so yeah, so also at the very beginning, you have Jesus coming into Jerusalem, which is showing all the signs that he's the Messianic King, the Mashiach. And there are two groups who are sad. Two people, there's a group and a person who's sad. Who are the people that are sad? Uh-huh. No, like sad, well, distraught. Let's say use the word distraught, because that could be sad and angry. There's a group that is distraught. The leaders, right. And so the leader, they know what's happening. And so then he also then quotes from Jeremiah, literally saying that they're rebels, that the leaders got it for the people. And so they what do they do? Yeah, well, they put him again. Yep. So yeah, so they do a rebel charge. And so then there's a day where there's a compromise where they release Barabbas. Yeah, so he's actually someone who did kill Roman leaders. Who at least Romans who did actually do what
It's not right.
well, they actually released person who did what Jesus is charged for. It'll be like if I stole a TV from Best Buy. And then you get arrested, and they're like, all right, people, what should we do? Should we release the person who did it, or release the person who has the charge? So both of us are charged with stealing the TV. Yep, and then they'll actually say, nope, you go to prison now. And so yeah, which is crazy, because Barnabas is actually like another name for Jesus. No, there's no collection. Like, there's we don't know what happened to Barnabas. Yeah, I hope he recognized his waywardness. So you got the leaders who are angry, and then you have Jesus who comes in, and he is distraught. What is he distraught with? Well, he knows what's going to happen. He's distraught because the leaders are angry and wanting to now kill him. And so he says actually a pretty cool phrase. It's like, when they're this angry, when the wood is green. When they're ready to set a bonfire, when the wood is green. Imagine what's going to happen when the wood is dry.
Like,
Yeah, so it's like,
we done messed up. What do we do?
yeah, and then like, which leads to Passover, which he uses the symbol of
Yeah.
Passover to explain his death right.
And that's how you know it's Easter.
Mm-hmm. All right, you ready to read? Let's do it. Ezra chapter 4, verse 24, chapter 5, verse 5. Thank you, King Jesus, that you made a commitment. You made a commitment to bless the world through this people group. And so you claim this people group to bless the world. And thank you when I really mess up, when the leaders and that people group mess up. Your loving steadfastness keeps going. Your commitment stands true. Thank you. Yeah. Hey, love. Can you? We're trying to read. Thank you. All right. Thank you for your steadfast love. There's people talking a little louder at the golf course, and I think that's who he was barking at. And we look to you. Because when we take a moment and know just how our innards, especially when we look on your good, loving nature, who's always giving, who's always generous, who's always sacrificing for the other, using your people, your hands and body. When we compare ourselves next to that, we see our wretchedness. And yet you love and you just step forward. You don't let our wretchedness be the end all. You're so good. Thank you for dying and resurrecting. Thank you. You made it so you became our representative now for the whole world. So that now we can step closer to Yahweh, to you. And as we read the writings of the ancients, I plea, reveal the goodness to us. Let us meditate on it. May we become just inner beings. Amen. So work stopped. New inspiration. So work stopped on God. So remember what happened before the yeah, so they did a trump up letter. So imagine you and I are trying to build a house in Washington. Okay. And we build a house there, but the local neighbors are like, we don't want that house being built. And so they tell the governor of Washington that if you do this, they will rebel. They're known for rebelliousness. Yeah. And so the governor of Washington says, cease and desist. And so our neighbors now tell us. So yeah, so now we're here where they cease and desist the building the second temple. So work stopped. Huh? No. Jesus is only happens in the New Testament. We get future, like we get telescopes where we look forward to Jesus. We look forward to Mashiach. There's no, yeah, Jesus is not on the scene yet. But then he's still working among his people. Okay. So work stopped on God's house in Jerusalem. It stopped until the second year of the reign of Darius, king of Persia, when the prophet Haggai and Zechariah, son of Odo, the prophet, prophesied to Judahites in Judah and Jerusalem in the name of the God of Israel, which was over them. Then Zerubbabel, son of Shealtiel, and Jeshua, son of Jozadak, set to and began to build God's house in Jerusalem, and God's prophets were with them, supporting them. At that time, Tatiniah, the governor of beyond the river, Shether Bosnia, and their associates came to them and said to them, "Who made you in order to build this house and complete this furnishing?" Then they said to them, "What are the names of the men who are constructing this building?" But God's eye was on the Judahites' elders, and they did not stop them while an account could go to Darius, and then a letter could come back about this. I will not be writing the Old Testament for Everyone series were it not for a political development in Britain after the Second World War. History. Let's do it. In the city where I was born, the socialist controlled city council decided to work for equal opportunities for kids from working class backgrounds by buying places for them at the premier private school in the city, which sent scores of people to Oxford and Cambridge each year. I was given one of those places. No one in my family had ever stayed at school beyond the age of 14, let alone attended college. So that's how I came to learn Latin, Greek, and then Hebrew at university. If I had been born a few years earlier or a few years later, when another change of government terminated the program, this would never have happened. Or you might speculate God would have had to turn me into a theologian some other way. It's very distracting, friend. Of course, I had to take the opportunity that I was given. The Judahites in Babylon had the opportunity to move to their homeland to rebuild a temple in Jerusalem because of a political development that God brought about in fulfillment of a prophecy in Jeremiah. The ascendancy of the Persians in the Middle East, but the Judahites had to take advantage of the opportunity. They gave up work on the temple because of political development. The opposition of other peoples in their region, though they were responsible for giving in to these pressures. 15 years later, the ascension of Darius the Great to the Persian throne provides a friendly context for their taking up the work again. The way chapter 4 and 5 of Ezra are divided is inclined to confuse the book's logic at this point. The main point of chapter 4 has reviewed the ups and downs of relationships between Judah and Samaria over half a century or so and the way this affected attempts to rebuild the city of Jerusalem as well as the temple. The last verse of chapter 4 then picks up the story of the building of the temple itself. It was still the time of Cyrus when the work was begun and abandoned. Cyrus was succeeded by his son Cambyses, who died after 7 years in mysterious circumstances. The identity of his successor, Smerdis, is also mysterious, but it is clear enough that he was assassinated and succeeded by one of the assassins, who became Darius the Great. It was thus a period of disorder in the Persian Empire that gave people such as Judahites scope to do what they wanted in the knowledge that as long as they did not behave too outrageously, the Persians would probably be too preoccupied to worry. So the political situation do you hear that, love? Oh. Just learning about the Persian Empire and its leaders and like the what made the political hotbed for them to go back working on a temple. Pretty much the Persian Empire was just too tumultuous. As long as they didn't become an eyesore, they just could just do what they pretty much what they want to do, and that was build a temple. So the political situation gave the Judahites their opportunity, but there had been no resumption of the work on the temple unless they had seized their opportunity. Key to their doing so was the urging of two prophets whose actual words appear elsewhere in the Old Testament and the books named after them. There's an interesting complementary aspect to their messages. Haggai is more stick. Zechariah is more carrots. So you ever heard of the stick and carrot discipline? So you want me to go dig a hole. outside. A stick will be you start smacking me and go, I will stop smacking you until you dig that hole. A carrot goes, Corey, I have this beautiful laptop that's brand new. You dig this hole for me, I will give you said laptop. So he's saying Haggai the prophet is more, do this so you don't get destroyed. And then Zechariah is more, let's be part of the rejuvenation movement. Good things will come. Let's build this temple.
And that's what they're doing.
So they're getting both the stick and the carrot. They're getting fear. They're getting...
It's like a carrot and a stick in Minecraft.
No. No, that's a...
The pig is one that goes forward, and the carrot is one that's like, let's
Yeah.
do this.
So like to make the pig move in Minecraft. So the stick method will be literally you're smacking the pig in the back. Go move, move, move. While the carrot is you're holding the carrot in front to get it moving.
Like the carrot is like getting moving, and then the stick is like, hurry up.
Yeah. There's a nice
That
ambiguity.
makes sense. That's a perfect explanation.
Mm-hmm. There's a nice ambiguity about the statement that the two prophets prophesied to the Judahites because that word often means against. And it is the regular task of prophets to confront their people, even when they're bringing good news, because they usually do so when people believe there can be no good news. The two prophets preach both to and against. The people have to decide how they hear what they say. And both the carrots and the stick were means of the prophets supporting the people in the work on the temple. The book of Haggai reveals that there is more than politics behind the neglect. There we go. Neglect.
Wow.
You have to throw it up. Neglect. All right.
My God.
The book of Haggai reveals that there is more than politics lying behind the neglect of the work on the temple. The economic situation is tough. People have been able to restore their own houses, but they have kept postponing doing something about God's house. And that suggests something wrong with their priorities. Once a prophet had to tell David that God was unenthusiastic about his wanting to build a temple. Now a prophet has to tell the people that they are in trouble with God for not wanting to do so. On the other hand, to judge from the space occupied by Zechariah's vision in his book, maybe it is also significant that God spends a lot more time encouraging the Judahites about the temple building project than to beating them about the head by means of Haggai's exhortations. You can do it, is God's message through Zechariah, not because they have the natural ability, but by my spirit. The book of Ezra makes a similar point in another way. The name of the God of Israel was over them. It's not clear whether that applies just to the two prophets or to the people as a whole, but the effect is the same. The name of God being over you means you belong to God. That places an obligation on you. It also implies that you are assured of protection and provision. When Tatania and company are asking about the names of the builders, it reflects how, as far as they are concerned, the building is a human project. The author of this book knows that what counts is the fact that the name of God is over the work. It is a divine project. Yet, once again, nothing is straightforward. Once again, it is not clear that politics are going to work the community's way. A Babylonian record mentions Tatinina as governor of Beyond the River province in Darius' day. In Ezra 6, Tatinina himself will also refer to someone else, presumably Zerubbabel, as governor of the Judahites. But that denotes a lower level authority. The governor in Jerusalem will be subordinate to a governor with a wider authority, such as Tatania, as indeed Tatania was subordinate to a higher authority. That means Tatania is not a local figure like Rehum. And he does not represent Samaria's interests over against those of Judah. His inquiry about what the Judahites are doing is open to discovering that there is nothing problematic about it. So God's providence continues to make the politics work the Judahites' way as they are able to continue the building work while the inquiry takes place. Not only was God's name over them, God's eye was on them. Zechariah chapter 4 verse 10 speaks of God's eyes ranging over the whole earth. God keeps an eye on things, as we say, not in a threatening sense, but in a reassuring and comforting sense. Tatania and company are responsible to the Emperor for keeping an eye on events in Judah, and they are fulfilling their responsibility. But there's someone else keeping an eye on Judah. All right, friend, we can start. Headphones, share space. All right, love. Thank you for quieting it down for a bit while I finish. It was distracting enough where I had to speak loud. Okay. That's why I was like, sorry, yelling. Okay, it's cool. Okay. Headphones on. Microphone set up. Connection on. Test. Mute speakers. All right, we're good now. Test. Perfect. All right. Elden Rings. Oh, there you go. You're good now, Broheim.
Okay.
Against the tablet? Yeah. The 1 stars are pretty bad. Yeah. Huh. They put a subscription behind the new Kindle. Yeah. Uh-huh. I see. Oh. So it's like all the features we have in this older Kindle get stripped away if we get a newer Kindle. Okay. Parent friendly, but it's only if you pay to be parent friendly. I see. So it's also Amazon making